The message from my daughter arrived at 11:47 p.m., 3 days before Christmas. "Dad, don't come here until you apologize to my stepdad." I stared at those words for almost a full minute. Then another message appeared. "I mean it. If you show up without apologizing, I'll call the police." My hands went cold. I read the messages again and again, hoping I had misunderstood them. But there was no misunderstanding. My own daughter, the little girl I had once carried on my shoulders through the snow, was now telling me I wasn't welcome in her home for Christmas. And the worst part, she wanted me to apologize to the man who had spent years trying to erase me from her life. I put my phone down and looked at the Christmas tree in my living room. The lights were blinking softly, but suddenly the entire house felt dark. I had bought presents for everyone. For my daughter, Emma, I had bought the silver bracelet she had admired months earlier. For my grandson, Noah, I had bought a red bicycle. And for my granddaughter, Lily, I had found the stuffed rabbit she had written about in her Christmas letter. I had even bought a bottle of expensive whiskey for Emma's stepfather, Richard. Not because I liked him. Because I had promised myself I would never let an old family wound ruin Christmas for my grandchildren. Apparently, I had been the only one keeping that promise. My name is Daniel Carter, and I had been divorced from Emma's mother, Susan, for almost 20 years. When Emma was 8, Susan remarried Richard. At first, I tried to accept him. I told myself that Richard could be another father figure in Emma's life, without replacing me. But Richard never wanted to share that role. He wanted it completely. The first time Emma called him Dad, I smiled. I pretended it didn't hurt. But Richard noticed. And from that day forward, he made sure I felt like an outsider. He told Emma that I was irresponsible. He told her I cared more about my work than her. He reminded her of every birthday I had ever missed, every school event I couldn't attend, every weekend I had to cancel because of circumstances beyond my control. What he never told her was that I had worked double shifts to pay her medical bills. What he never told her was that I had slept in my car outside her hospital room because I couldn't afford a hotel. And what he definitely never told her was that, after the divorce, I had spent years sending money to Susan even when I barely had enough to pay my own rent. But children don't always see the sacrifices adults make. They remember what they are told. And Richard was very good at telling stories. By the time Emma turned 18, she barely spoke to me. When she went to college, she stopped answering my calls. When she graduated, I found out through a photograph someone posted online. I stood alone in my apartment that night, looking at the picture of my daughter in her graduation gown. I cried, not because she had graduated without me, but because she had learned how to live without me. Still, I never stopped loving her. Years later, Emma got married. I received the invitation 2 weeks before the wedding. It was addressed to Daniel Carter. No dad. No father. Just my name. I went anyway. I sat in the back row. Richard stood beside Emma when she walked down the aisle. I watched my daughter smile. And when the priest asked who gave her away, Richard answered. I felt something inside me break. But I stayed quiet. Because it was her day. After the wedding, Emma came to me. She hugged me for 3 seconds. Then she whispered, "Thank you for coming." I smiled and said, "I'll always come." Those were the last words I said to her for almost 3 years. Then Noah was born. Everything changed. Emma called me from the hospital. "Dad." I hadn't heard her call me that in years. I couldn't speak. She started crying. "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry too," I whispered. From that day on, things slowly improved. I became part of Noah's life. Then Lily came along. For the first time in years, Christmas felt like Christmas again. Until Richard started interfering. He would make comments whenever I visited. You don't need to buy them so many things. You're confusing Noah. You should let the parents decide. And eventually, he said the sentence I would never forget. You had your chance to be their father. I looked him directly in the eyes. I am their grandfather. He smiled coldly. Not if I have anything to say about it. I walked away. I didn't fight him. I didn't shout. I simply went home. And now, 3 days before Christmas, my daughter had sent me those messages. Don't come until you apologize to my stepdad. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I called Emma. She answered after several rings. Dad. Emma, what happened? Silence. Then she said, you know what happened. No, I don't. You embarrassed Richard. When? At Thanksgiving. I froze. Thanksgiving. I remembered. Richard had made a joke about my job in front of everyone. He said, some people spend their whole lives trying to look important. Everyone laughed. I looked at him and said, at least I don't need to put other people down to feel important. The room went silent. That was it. That was the crime. Emma sighed. Dad, you need to apologize. Emma, he insulted me first. I don't care. Those 4 words hurt more than anything Richard had ever said. I'm your father, I whispered. And he's my family too. I closed my eyes. So I'm not. She didn't answer. Then she said, just apologize, please. The call ended. I sat at my kitchen table for nearly an hour. Then I made a decision. I would not apologize for something I had not done. Instead, I packed the Christmas presents into my car. I drove to Emma's house. Not to enter. Not to argue. Just to leave the gifts on the porch. When I arrived, the house was decorated beautifully. Christmas lights covered the roof. There was a wreath on the door. I took Noah's bicycle from the trunk. Then Lily's gift. Then Emma's bracelet. Finally, I took out Richard's bottle of whiskey. I placed everything beside the front door. Then I pulled a small envelope from my coat. Inside was a letter for Emma. I had written only one sentence. I love you enough to walk away, but I will never stop being your father. I placed it on top of the gifts. Then I walked back to my car. I was about to start the engine when I heard the front door open. Emma stepped outside. Dad. I stopped. She ran toward me. I rolled down the window. She was crying. Why did you leave everything here? Because you told me not to come. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. She stood there shaking. I was angry. I know. Richard made me choose. I looked at her. What? She covered her face. He said if I kept letting you come around, he would leave. My heart sank. And you chose him. She started crying harder. I was scared. Before I could answer, another voice came from the doorway. Richard. Emma, come inside. She turned around. Then something unexpected happened. Emma looked at him and said, no. Richard froze. What did you say? I said no. She walked toward him. You made me send that message to my father. Richard's face changed. You're misunderstanding. No, I'm not. Then she turned back to me. I found something yesterday. She ran inside. A few minutes later, she came back holding a cardboard box. She placed it on the hood of my car. I found this in Mom's attic. I opened the box. Inside were dozens of letters. My letters. Letters I had written to Emma when she was a child. Birthday cards. Christmas cards. Letters I had sent after every missed weekend. Letters I thought had never been delivered. My hands began to shake. "I gave these to your mother," I whispered. Emma nodded. "She kept them." "Why?" She looked toward the house. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Because Richard told her you never sent anything." I couldn't breathe. Emma opened one of the letters. It was dated 20 years earlier. She read it aloud. "Emma, Daddy loves you. I know you think I forgot about your school play, but I didn't. I was working because I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed. I'm sorry. I promise I'll make it up to you." Emma began sobbing. "I spent my whole childhood thinking you didn't care." I looked at my daughter. I never stopped caring. Richard stepped outside. "Enough." Emma turned toward him. "No." For the first time in my life, she stood between us. "You don't get to control this anymore." Richard stared at her. "You would choose him over me." Emma wiped her tears. "He never asked me to choose." Richard said nothing. She continued. "You did." 3 days later, on Christmas morning, I was sitting at my daughter's table. Noah was playing with his new bicycle. Lily was holding the stuffed rabbit. Emma was making coffee. And Richard was sitting across from me in complete silence. Then he finally spoke. "I owe you an apology." I looked at him. He swallowed hard. "I was jealous." I said nothing. "I thought if you were close to Emma, there wouldn't be room for me." I looked at my daughter. Then I looked back at Richard. "You were wrong." He nodded. "I know." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Emma placed her hand over mine. "Dad," she whispered. I looked at her. "I'm sorry." I smiled. "You don't have to be perfect, Emma." She started crying again. "I just don't want to lose you." "You won't." She hugged me. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt like I wasn't standing outside my daughter's life anymore. I was home. That Christmas taught me something I will never forget. Sometimes people don't leave because they stop loving you. Sometimes they leave because someone has convinced them that loving you is wrong. And sometimes, all it takes is one truth to bring years of lies crashing down. So if someone you love is distant from you today, don't assume they stopped caring. There may be a story you haven't heard. There may be a letter that never reached them. There may be someone standing between you and the person you love. But if the love is real, don't give up too quickly. Because sometimes the door you think has been closed forever is only waiting for someone brave enough to knock one more time. And sometimes, the best Christmas gift isn't something wrapped beneath a tree. Sometimes it's getting your family back.